بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على ختم الأنبياء وإمام المرسلين سيدنا ونبينا محمد القدر العظيم وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. Alhamdulillah, we're continuing our look at Maraqi al-Falah from the section on fasting, and we reached Ru'yatul Hilal. So he says, right? So now the Ru'yatul Hilal, you could diagram this, right? What if you see it? What is required to see the moon? If one person sees it, and what if a group of people see it? Right? There are implications. فhe says, رحمه الله تعالى, ومن رأى هلال رمضان وحده أو هلال الفطر وحده ورد قوله أي رده القاضي لزمه الصيام لقوله تعالى فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصمه. Right? Whoever sees the hilal, the new moon for Ramadan alone, or the new moon, the crescent, for breaking the fast on their own, and their witness is rejected, i.e. the qadi rejects it, they must fast, meaning in both cases. If they saw the moon, so the entering of Ramadan, the required caution is you're reasonably sure you saw it, you must fast. You're sure you saw it. This, of course, إلا إن تردد, unless you then you saw it. The رؤية طبعا لا تكون إلا حقيقية. You can't bear witness. I think I saw it. That's not even رد. That is not even considered, right? Right? إلا إن رجع. Right? That's a separate matter, right? They must fast. Because of the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whoever if you witnesses the month, then let them fast. وَقَدْ رَآهُ ظَاهِرًا, and it would appear that they saw it, right? لقوله صلى الله عليه وسلم صوموا يوم تصومون صومكم يوم تصومون وفطركم يوم تفطرون. Your fast is the day when you fast, and your breaking of fast is the day that you break fast, meaning it's a collective matter, right? وَالنَّاسُ لَمْ يُفْطِرُوا, and the people did not break their fast, so you must still fast. فَوَجَبَ أَنْ لَا يُفْطِرُ, so it's required that even if you think you saw the new moon for after Ramadan, i.e. Shawwal, that you must continue fasting. لا فرق بين كون السماء بعلة فلم يقبل لنفسه أو ردت بصحوها لانفراده. It doesn't matter whether the sky was cloudy, so the one person's word wasn't taken for some reason, or their witness was rejected because the sky was clear, because he's the only person who saw it. وفيه إشارة إلى لزوم صيامه وإن لم يشهد عند القاضي. And in this there's also an indication that if you saw it, you must fast even if you didn't bear witness in front of the qadi, right? Because this is a matter where there's some khilaf, right? ولا فرق بين كونه من عرض الناس with a ضمة أو الإمام فلا يأمر الناس بالصوم ولا بالفطر إذا رآه وحده ويصوم هو. And this ruling applies in its absolute nature, regardless of whether one is a common person, right? عرض الناس أي عامتهم. Or if one is the imam. The imam can't just order people to fast because he saw it, nor to break the fast just because he saw it. There's a process. But even the imam would fast. ولا يجوز له الفطر بتيقنه هلال شوال. But one cannot break the fast if you are certain that it is Shawwal, if it's been declared to be still from, if it's still from Ramadan. برؤيته منفردا, if one saw it alone, لما روينا, because of, or لما روينا, because of what we have related, كذا في الفتح والتترخانية عن المحيط, from the aforementioned books. والخلاصة وفي الجوهرة خلافه, but in the Jawhara Nayyara, there is the opposite of this, right? And what's mentioned in the Jawhara is also mentioned in the Hidayah. وقال الإمام, okay. So here the expression وقال الإمام, right? The qala here refers to the author of the Jawhara. So the ibara has some iham here. Right? وقال الإمام أي قال الإمام الحدادي يأمرهم بالصوم برؤيته وحده. That the يأمرهم, that the Imam orders them to fast if he alone sees it. ولا يصلي بهم العيد, but the Imam would not pray Eid with them. ولا يفطر إلا سرا, but and he would only secretly break the fast. لا يعني ولا يفطر لا سرا ولا جهرا, and he does not break the fast neither secretly nor publicly. انتهى. This is the end of the quote from the Imam here. It's referring to صاحب الجوهرة. But this is خلاف الأصح. The opinion mentioned in the matan is what is in Fath al-Qadir and so on, that and the khulasa, etc. The other opinion, which is in al-Jawhar al-Nayyar, is also in the Hidayah, right? So فأخذ بالاحتياط في المحلين, right? So he took from caution in both cases. وفي الحجة قال صاحب الكتاب إذا استيقن الهلال يخرج ويصلي العيد. In the Hujjah, a book of Fatawa, the author of Al-Kitab, which could be Al-Quduri, Tahtawi wasn't sure. If one is sure of the Hilal, then one goes out and prays Eid. ويفطر, but one breaks the fast. لأنه ثابت بالشرع, right? Because it's شرعا established. فمن رأى منكم الشهر, right? وقد تيقن, and one is certain. كذا في التترخانية. This is what's mentioned in the تترخانية. Okay, but the asl is, so these are other aqwal, and the reason is also mentioned. These other aqwal are mentioned is to, and you see he is progressively bringing more nuance towards the end of the book, right? That there are things where there's ikhtilaf in tasheeh, and one of the reasons to know the ikhtilaf in tasheeh is the application of positions may vary from in different land and so on, because different people may arrive at different conclusions regarding these matters. From soundly, there's others that are not in accordance with the framework of the fuqaha, right? So the summary is what's in the matan, right? Basically, right? There are other opinions. So if someone is being diligent, they put the first up, that this is what's expressed in the matan. These are the other opinions. This is how they look, right? And then if you map it that way, you could see that there are points of caution, but the asl is what's in the matan, and this is, he explained why he chose it as well. Because the caution, if someone saw if they saw the hilal of Ramadan, but his witness wasn't here, the caution with respect to beginning the month would be to fast. The caution towards the end of the month, you're sure you saw Shawwal, even if you're sure, you, the caution is that you doubt your your certainty and you fast. وإن أفطر من رأى الهلال وحده في الوقتين رمضان وشوال قضى لما تلونا وروينا ولا كفارة عليه. And if someone breaks a fast, if they saw the crescent of Ramadan alone, right, or the crescent of Shawwal alone, they have to make up that fast because of what we've related, but there's no kafara on them. ولا على صديق الرأي, and nor upon a friend of the one who saw it. إن شهد عنده بهلال الفطر, if the person gives witness, أي أخبر, and if they reported that they saw the hilal of the fitr, وصدقه, and one believes, they were believed, فأفطر, so they broke the fast. لأنه يوم عيد عنده, because the person believed it was the day of Eid. فيكون شبهة, so it was a shubha. And الكفارة كالعقوبة ترد بالشبهات, and the kafara, like punishments, is warded by shubuhat. فيكون شبهة وبرد شهادته في رمضان صار مكذبا شرعا. Right? But with the rejection of their shahada with respect to Ramadan, it's as if shar'an it was rejected, right? Which is why they'd have to make qada. Right? So the qada is because what they said was not accepted. So if the shahada was rejected in court, it's as if they did not witness it, shar'an. But because the person told them and you believe them, that's enough shubha. So qada is required. If you followed somebody and didn't fast, but then you realize, oh, but they declared that it's not Ramadan, that it is Ramadan. What is it? If you broke the fast for the end of the month, right, believing one person's word, but turns out that their witness was rejected, you believe them, so kafara is not needed. But if their shahada was rejected, that shahada was as if it didn't occur. So therefore, what's required? Qada is required. That's the mukazzab shar'an. Shar'an, it was deemed incorrect. وبذلك لا كفارة عليه. Therefore, no kafara is due upon them. ولو كان فطره قبل ما رده القاضي في الصحيح. Even if one broke the fast, in this case, before the qadi rejected it. لقيام الشبهة, because the shubha remains. The person, an upright person said, I saw the moon. وهي قوله تعالى الصوم يوم تصومون. Fasting is the day you fast. وقيل تجب الكفارة. And there's another opinion that says the kafara is due فيهما للظاهر بين الناس. That kafara will be required because of what's apparent amongst people, which is that it was a day of fasting. في الفطر والحقيقة التي عنده في رمضان. And because of the reality that they have with respect to Ramadan, so للحقيقة التي عنده, right? Because the person themselves thought they saw it, right? So sorry, للحقيقة التي عنده, the reality that's with them, that it is Ramadan, right? Right? The حقيقة التي عنده is your يقين أصلي. It is Ramadan, right? واليقين الأصلي لا يترك إلا بيقين. That certainty is not only left for certainty, and one person tells you is not sufficient certainty. So this argument would be that no, you require kafara. So the fatwa is that kafara is not required, right? That's within the matan. But there are those who would exercise caution about these things. But you cannot teach things like that because People struggle enough as it is with respect to these kinds of like kafara. People really struggle with it. 60 consecutive days. وإذا كان بالسماء علة من غيم أو غبار ونحوه. So only one person seeing. Right? So where there's levels of seeing, only one person seeing, what happens? Now, what if there's an obstruction to seeing? من غيم, from clouds, أو غبار أو ونحوه, or dust or the like, كضباب, like ضباب, like mist, وندى, right? Just, dew, right? And here it would mean it's problematic, like unless we say mist or like it's rain, right? Because nada literally means moisture, al-balal, right? But it's also used for matar. Which is the more likely one here. قبل القاضي بمجلسه خبر واحد عدل. If the sky is cloudy, the qadi would accept the report of one upright person, right? And by upright person here, right, there's adala, of course, adalat al-zahir and adalat al-zahir wal-batin. There's outward uprightness and outward and inward uprightness. Here, what هو الذي حسناته أكثر من سيئاته. The upright person does not have to be perfect. Right? Is the one whose good deeds predominate over their bad deeds. Right? And uprightness, he says, وَالْعَدَالَةُ مَلَكَةٌ تَحْمِلُ عَلَى مُلَازَمَةِ التَّقْوَى وَالْمُرُوءَةِ. Uprightness is a quality that causes person to uphold taqwa. And we're talking about baseline taqwa. Fulfilling obligations, leaving prohibitions. فعل الواجبات وترك المحرمات. Right? And muru'ah, and to act with manliness, with social dignity, right? Which is to leave the things that are khawarimul muru'ah, that go against manliness, right? Right? Because if a person acts recklessly and they don't care about what people think, someone, let's say they go to throw out their garbage, so they go just in their trousers. They don't put on a shirt, for example, right? Or, they eat while walking publicly, things like that. They're this kind of person, you'd have doubts as to whether they'll be careful with respect to the rights of others, right? So that comes up in Kitab al-Shahadat, but this is the definition of adala, uprightness. Right? And the standards of muru'ah differ socially, of course. أو خبري مستور, or even the report of someone of unknown, uprightness. وهو مجهول الحال لم يظهر له فسق ولا عدالة يقبل قوله. Right? This is someone of uncertain state. We don't know as to whether they're corrupt nor upright. Their word is accepted. في الصحيح, according to sound opinion. Right? ويلزم العدل أن يشهد عند الحاكم في ليلة رؤيته. An upright person is required to bear witness that they saw it before the judge. كي لا يصبحوا مفطرين, so that people would not begin the day having broken the fast. So if you're the only person, right? Like let's say they're in the city and they're trying to see the moon, but they couldn't. You were camping on an elevated place and you're sure you saw it. You say, I'll tell them tomorrow after Fajr. No, because some people may eat, right? So you'll be personally obligatory for you. If you think you're the only person who saw it, you must go and inform, right? يلزم. It's required, right? لأنه من فروض العين. Right? So وللمخد وللمخدرة أن تشهد بغير إذن وليها. And the woman who is who who's secluded in her own home, right? She can go out, but she saw the moon, right? She stays at home, but let's say, Uncle Jamil's family lives on the hill. So Zubaydah, turns out she was stunningly beautiful. Uncle Jamil says, Betty, like a lot of men will notice you, stay home. She says, okay, Dad. And she does the Sayyidah Maryam routine, right? She's devoted to God. But in a little, she's inspired by Sayyidah Asya that she wants a house to be devoted to God with. So she asked for a little room on the roof. From the room in the roof, she saw the crescent. Uncle Jamil is out for Isha. She could go to the Qadi without the permission of her guardian. Even though it's nighttime, right? Why? لأنه من فروض العين, because it's personally obligatory. Like if you think you're the only person who saw it, then you'd be required to go, right? And he says the upright person must go and bear witness, because a corrupt person, right? So, saw it, then their witness would not be accepted, right? An openly corrupt person saw it, and Mawlana Tahtawi explains that out. Okay. ويقبل خبره لو شهد على شهادة واحد مثله. And their report is accepted if their witness is corroborated by another's confirmation. لأن العدد في الأصول ليس بشرط فكذا في الفروع. So one person must have seen it, and one person says that they're truthful, right? This is the sky is cloudy, right? Now, seeing the moon, there are two situations, right? There is ikhbar, is when you are reporting about it, and there's shahada, and when you're bearing witness, right? So keep that in mind. Here, this is the khabar. One person's report is accepted, and one person confirms that they're truthful. This is ikhbar. When the sky is clear, it is min bab shahada. It's bearing witness. Okay. ويقبل خبره إن كان لو كان أنثى أو رقيقا أو محدودا في قذف وقد تاب في ظاهر الرواية إثباتا لرمضان. And if the sky is cloudy, this is not from testimony, it's ikhbar. So therefore, testimony of one person would be accepted because it's ikhbar. The testimony of one woman would be accepted because it's ikhbar. The testimony of one slave would be accepted. The testimony of someone who'd been punished for qadhf, for false accusation, and they had repented, would be accepted. Even though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do not ever accept their witness. Right? Right? But this is not, if the sky is cloudy, one person's report would be accepted if confirmed by another. Because it's من باب الإخبار, not من باب الشهادة. الخبر يقبل فيها الواحد, الشهادة لا بد فيها من التعدد. Right? So when there's a report, a singular report can be acceptable. But bearing witness, you need two witnesses to establish a proof, minimally, right? And this is in Zahir al-Riwayah. And there, right? And this happened, right? With respect to Sayyidina Abi Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, because he was punished for qadhf, but his narration regarding his narrations were accepted, but his witness was not accepted by Nas of the Quran. And that, of course, that's why don't read innovators, right? There's people who say things ill about Sayyidina. We do not believe in the sinlessness of the companions, but we believe in their uprightness. Sayyidina Abu Bakr made a mistake. He was punished for it, but he was upright. His narrations were accepted by the Sahaba themselves, let alone by those after them, right? And his ahadith are in the major collections, and they're accepted. Right? So their report is accepted for affirming Ramadan لأنه أمر ديني, because it's a religious matter. وخبر العدل فيه مقبول, and the report of an upright person is accepted. فأشبه رواية الأخبار, so it resembles narration of reports, right, in which خبر الواحد is accepted. ولهذا لا يشترط لفظ الشهادة, because it's reporting, it's خبر and not shahada. One does not have to say, I bear witness that I see Ramadan, right? ولا تقدم الدعوة, and does not require a claim first, right? كما لا يشترطان في سائر الأخبار, which are not required in any reports. وأطلق القبول, and he mentions acceptance unconditionally كما في الهداية. وقال كان الإمام أبو بكر محمد بن الفضل إنما يقبل شهادة الواحد إذا فسر. Right? So he mentions it is accepted. One person says they saw it, it is accepted. But in the Hidayah, but he said the great Imam Abu Bakr Muhammad ibn al-Fadl, right? And he's one of the great earlier Hanafis, who would only accept the witness of one if they detailed it. What did you see? يعني فقال رأيته في وقت يعني في وقت يدخل في السحاب ثم ينجلي, لأن الرؤية في مثل هذا تتفق في زمان قليل فجاز أن ينفرد هو به. Says, so if he says, I saw it at such and such time between the clouds, and then and then it became clear, so I saw it, right? Because when the moon is born, it could be that it was only visible for a brief period of time. So it's possible, especially if cloudy, that only one person did in fact see it. أما بدون هذا التفسير لا تقبل. But without explaining how they saw it and where they saw it, which direction, it would not be accepted. لمكان التهمة, because it's a matter of accusation. انتهى كذا في التجنيس. This is what's mentioned in the tajnis. Right? So the author of the Hidayah mentioned in the tajnis, which is a work at Tajnis wal Mazid that he authored after the Hidayah, from Muhammad ibn al-Fadl. And many of the ulama liked that, and some of them turned that into their process, right? That if one person sees it, then they need to right? Right? So then he mentions تنبيه لما كان قول الحساب مختلفا فيه, when the opinion of the Hussab, of those who calculate the months, i.e. rather than seeing them, is differed upon. نظمه ابن وهبان in his منظومة put it in نظم فقال وقول أولي التوقيت ليس بموجب قيل نعم والبعض إن كان يكثر And the words of ulit tawqit, of those who set the timetables, right? Those who of calculation, is not mujib, does not establish the beginning of the month. But there's an opinion that yes, it is. And some said if it's widespread, that though the calculators are in agreement, right? So some said that if someone calculated it, you can act on that. But some said if it's widespread, right? وقال ابن الشحنة بعد نقل الخلاف فإذا اتفق أصحاب أبي حنيفة إلا النادر والشافعي أنه رحم الله الجميع أنه لا اعتماد على قول المنجمين في هذا. So Ibn Shihna, who wrote a commentary on the Wahbaniyya, said, and great faqih and author of some great works, that after relating this difference, therefore the followers of Abu Hanifa, except a rare minority, and of Shafi'i, Imam al-Shafi'i, concur, meaning generally concur, that there is no reliance on calculations in this. But there are minority opinions to the contrary, but they've been rejected historically, right? Although, notably, one of the foremost of the late Shafi'is, one of the last people the Ummah admitted was at the level of broad ijtihad, Imam Taqi-ud-Din al-Subki, he wrote a treatise defending the validity of calculations, right? So it cannot be deemed deviant, right? And there's others as well, earlier and some later, right? But when it's cloudy, etc., the one person that taking the i'tibar of the mufass, of it's accepted mufassaran, that's a procedural matter, right? That's procedural. To what evidentiary basis is sufficient, that returns to the ra'i, right? The judgment, and there they so frequently, Mashaykh mentioned the qadis would ask these questions, right? Because someone said, so the moon would be sighted in this direction, right? And someone says, oh, I saw it in that direction. I said, in what shape? It was in the wrong shape, right? And they said something that then you're claiming a major miracle, right? That's khilaf al-zahir, right? And then he tells us ويشترط لهلال الفطر إذا كانت يعني أي لثبوته وثبوت غيره من الأهلة إن كان بالسماء علة لفظ الشهادة الحاصلة من حرين مسلمين مكلفين غير محدودين في قذف أو حر وحرتين لكن بلا اشتراط تقدم دعوة على الشهادة كعتق الأمة وطلاق الزوجة, right? It is a condition for affirming the new moon for the fitr, for breaking the fast, right? And likewise for all other moons, if the sky is clouded, that there be a witness, right? So beginning the month is easy, but ending the month, right? And to establish all the other months, there needs to, even when it's cloudy, there needs to be 2 witnesses who are free, Muslim, morally responsible, not punished for qadhf, for false accusation, or 1 free man and 2 free women, But in this case, there's no condition of there being preceded by a claim, right? Just, and this is this similar to the witness for in the Emma being freed, right? Someone said, I heard the Emma being freed, right? You have to establish proof, but you don't have to precede it with a shahada. Right? So you have to give the lafz of the shahada, right? But what you do not need is a claim beforehand, right? Right? So, for example, if someone divorced their wife, right? And two people saw it, so they go and bear witness. So-and-so divorced his wife. We witnessed it, right? So there's certain things that the caution is given precedence, and that you can see in Kitab al-Shahada and so on, right? But here, the public interest is that when the sky is cloudy, right, that it's sufficient that two people witness it at the end of the month, but the lafz of shahada is required, it's a bearing witness, but it does not have to be preceded by a claim. And if someone says they are, the month is over, and then they say we bear witness that it is. وإذا رأى الهلال في الرستاق وليس هناك وال ولا قاض فإن كان ثقة يصوم الناس بقوله والفطر إن أخبر عدلان برؤية الهلال وبالسماء علة فلا بأس بأن يفطروا بلا دعوة ولا حكم للضرورة. And for those who are in the rustaq, in the far off areas, far away from the cities, right? Or far off from the cities, but can also refer to the villagers, but far off from the cities, right? And such that they don't hear about the announcement of Ramadan, etc. And there's no governor nor a qadi there. Then if a reliable person says they saw the beginning of the month, people can start fasting by one person seeing it. And in breaking the fast, if two people said they saw the moon at the end of the month of Ramadan, then they can break their fast if it is cloudy. Right? So they can act. When there isn't a qadi, then they can take the opinion of the upright. Right? So this second, so there's case someone sees it alone. Then if the sky is cloudy, right? Beginning of the month, end of the month. Now, what if the sky is not cloudy? Let's, folks, let's diagram this. Let's do a group diagram. Who's going to sort of initiate the diagram? So one person initiated, and who wants to initiate it this time? And not Sidi Zain.
I could initiate it.
Bismillah. Okay, tawakkalna ala Allah. Because there's these various, it seems convoluted, but it's actually very simple, right? One person saw it alone. What are the rulings? Then there's when it's إذا كان بالسماء علة, right? Right? And then what if إذا لم تكن بالسماء علة? And there's beginning of the month, end of the month, right? It's actually quite straightforward, right? وإذا لم تكن بالسماء علة فلا بد للثبوت من شهادة جمع عظيم لرمضان والفطر. If it's not clouded over, then it is required to affirm with witness through a large group of people that Ramadan has begun and that Ramadan has ended, the Fitr. وغيرهما, and likewise with the other months. لأن المطلع متحد في ذلك المحل, because the place of rising is the same in that place. Everybody would see it in the same direction. So if one person saw it, and was the habit of the Muslims that they would seek out the beginning of the month. So if it's coming in that direction, everybody's looking the same direction. They would all see it. Right? وَالْمَوَانِعْ مُنْتَفِيَةٌ. And if the sky is clear, they aren't prevented as well. Some people, the angle wasn't correct because of the clouds, right? وَالْأَبْصَارُ سَلِيمًا. People can see correctly. Right? Of course, باعتبار الغالب, right? Generally. والهمم في طلب رؤية الهلال مستقيمة. And people have the urge to see the hilal. Maybe too much urge, to be honest, right? Although people should encourage people that if you're interested to find out if the moon's been sighted, leave your phones at home and go look for the moon. Right. That way it would reduce a lot of the noise beforehand. Anyways, نسأل الله العافية. فالتفرد في مثل هذه الحالة يوهم الغلط. Right? So if only one person sees it when the sky is clear, this gives the impression of it being an error. Right? Right? لا يقبل الخبر المخالف للظاهر. Right? You don't accept a khabar that goes against what would appear obvious. فوجب التوقف في رؤية القليل. So one must pause with respect to few people seeing it. حتى يراه الجمع الكثير, until a large group sees it. لا فرق في ظاهر الرواية بين أهل مصر ومن ورد من خارج المصر. And in this report is the same whether it be from the people of the city or people who come from outside the city. A large number of people. Right? So it's like conceptually like تواتر. ومقدار عدد الجمع العظيم وقيل أهل المحلة. Right? وعن أبي يوسف 50. Right? So he says مفوض إلى رأي الإمام. The extent of the number of the large group, some said, is the people of that area, meaning they generally all saw it. And Abu Yusuf said 50 people are enough. قال قسامة, like قسامة. وعن خلف, one of the early Hanafis, 500 ببلخ, 500 in Balkh. That's built on their urf. وقال البقالي الألف ببخارى, 1,000 in Bukhara, right? Because we all go out to see the moon, right? So الألف ببخارى قليل, right? And those lands, like I was listening to something from Shaykh Muhammad Awama, right? And some people criticized him for it, right? Because he lived for many years in Medina. This is one of the great honors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon him, is that Allah facilitated for him to make jiwar of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But then when he went to Bukhara and Samarkand, the lands in Uzbekistan, he says, my joy and honor in walking in these lands is no less than the honor of being in Medina. Some people got upset. He says, because these are lands where every corner, says, right, there are ulama and awliya. Every tree and every stone here has witnessed the greatness of Islamic history, right? And we should be aware of the great civilizational flourishing throughout, right? This thing that there was the Khilaf al-Rashida and then everything just went bad. That's delusion, right? Especially because the fakhr of our civilization is not the buildings and the empires and so on, though there's great buildings and great empires, right? That's why Imam al-Dhahabi, what is the great history of Islam, is the history of people. رِجَالٌ صَدَقُوا مَا عَاهَدُوا اللَّهَ عَلَيْهِ. Those who were true in their covenant with God. Of the different categories of the people, right? Those are, that's why, books like Siyar A'lam and the biographies in any subject, like the biographies of the fuqaha, but we should be familiar with the biographies of the fuqaha. the biographies of the ulama in general, right? And books like Siyar A'lam al-Nubala, but also biographies of the righteous, right? The books of Tabaqat al-Sufiya, right? Or the early ones like Hilyat al-Awliya of Raghib, of not Raghib al-Isfahani, Abu Nu'aym al-Isfahani, etc. These should be things that we are constantly dipping in a graduated approach. Shorter works first, then intermediate works, and advanced works. Right? And those are not things you study, but things you have to sweat. ف وقال الكمال, and Ibn al-Huwam says والحق ما روي عن الإمام محمد عن الإمام أبي حنيفة رحمهم الله أن العبرة لتواتر الخبر ومجيئه من كل جانب انتهى. فالكمال said what is correct is what's related from Muhammad al-Hasan and from Abu Yusuf, that what counts is that the report be mass transmitted and it coming from all places. انتهى. وفي التجنيس عن محمد أن أمر القلة والكثرة مفوض إلى رأي الإمام. Right? And in the tajnis is related from Muhammad al-Hasan that the consideration of it being a small number or large number, what determines it returns to the judgment of the Imam. It's an amr, what they call amrun intidami. It's a matter of procedure. It's a procedural matter. وهو الصحيح, right? And this is the correct opinion, right? Without a specific number, right? As mentioned in the Tanwir, Tahtawi quotes. وفي البرهان في الأصح, and in the Burhan of الطرابلسي شرح مواهب بالرحمن في الأصح, according to the more correct opinion, لأن ذلك يختلف باختلاف الأوقات والأماكن, because that differs depending on different times and places. وتتفاوت الناس صدقا, and people are of different degrees of truthfulness, right? Of course, my copy has awful paragraphing. So this is if the sky is clear. Okay, so these 4 cases. Someone saw it alone, right? You can break down the various cases, right? وإذا تم العدد أي عدد رمضان 30 بشهادة فرد برؤيته ولم يرى هلال الفطر وذلك والسماء مصحية لا يحل الفطر اتفاقا على ما ذكره الشمس الأئمة ويعذر ذلك الشاهد كذا في الدرر وفي التجنيس وإذا لم يرى هلال شوال لا يفطرون حتى يصوموا يوما آخر. Right? If the days of Ramadan are complete, so they fasted 30 days, because after one person bore witness that they saw meaning they saw the hilal of Ramadan, but then after 30 days we don't see the hilal of Shawwal, right? And the sky is clear. It is not permitted for them to break the fast, even though they fasted 30 days. The sky is clear and we can't see it. The moon does not hide, right? The zahir is the one person made the error. And this is what's mentioned by Shams al-A'imma al-Sarakhsi, right? And ويعزر ذلك الشاهد, and that witness, that person who bore witness, of course the shahid who bore witness, i.e. who reported alone that they saw the moon of Ramadan, the crescent of Ramadan. كذا في الدرر, this was mentioned in the Durar. And in the Tajnis, it's mentioned that if the hilal of Shawwal was not seen, they don't break their fast, even if though they fasted 30, and rather they would fast another day, because the error is likely in what came before. وقال الإمام الزيلعي رحمه الله والأشبه أن يقال. And الزيلعي said the what's closer to the principle أشبه الأشبه بأصولنا وقواعد مذهبنا. What is closest to the أصول and قواعد of our madhab is to أن يقال إن كانت السماء مصحية لا يفطرون لظهور غلطه. Right? The more what's closer to the principles of our school is to say that if the sky is clear and i.e. and they fasted 30 days already, that they do not break their fast, because now it becomes clear that that person made a grave error, and a ghalat is a grave error. Khata could be a minor mistake even. Khata is a mistake, but it can, you can call a khata as it can even be a minor mistake, but ghalat is a grave mistake. وإن كانت مغمية يفطرون, but if it is cloudy, they would break their fast. لعدم ظهور الغلط, because there the grave error is not manifest. So that's if one person saw the beginning of the month. واختلف الترجيح في حل الفطر فيما إذا كان ثبوت رمضان بشهادة عدلين. And they differed in this issue of it being permitted to break the fast. 30 days have passed. Right? Can you break the fast if Ramadan was established by 2 witnesses? Right? So the number, وتم العدد, the 30 days are over. ولم يرى الهلال, and the crescent wasn't seen of Shawwal. ما صحوا, despite it being clear. صحح في الدراية والخلاصة في الدراية والخلاصة والبزازية حل الفطر. In the دراية, معراج الدراية شرح الهداية, and the خلاصة الفتاوى, and the فتاوى البزازية, that it's permitted to break the fast. لأن شهادة الشاهدين إذا قبلت كانت بمنزلة العيان, because the witness of 2 people is like it being seen. It's a حجة شرعية. وفي مجموع النوازل, the respected book of Fatawa, لا يفطرون, they don't break their fast. وصححه السيد الإمام الأجل ناصر الدين لأن عدم الرؤية مع الصحو دليل الغلط فتبطل شهادتهم. But what in مجموع النوازل, that if 2 people saw it to begin the month, but then end of the month the sky is clear, 30 days have passed, sky is clear, but they can't see the moon, then they don't break their fast, because it turns out that those 2 people made a mistake. Right? So this Imam Shurunbulali doesn't take a position, right? Because لقوة الخلاف, because the strength of the khilaf about this. ولا خلاف في حل الفطر إذا تم العدد وكان بالسماء علة ولو ثبت رمضان بشهادة الفرد العدل كالعدلين اتفاقا على التحقيق. And there's no difference. That is permitted to break the fast if the number of days is complete. 30 days is complete and the sky is cloudy. Even if Ramadan was established by 1 person's witness. Right? Because there it's not witness, right? It is ikhbar. Just like if 2 people saw it. By agreement, على التحقيق, according to the verified thing, because there's difference of opinion regarding this. So here, there's a number of great scholars. Imam Shurunbulali is written separately about issue of the Hilal. Ibn Abidin and Imam al-Laknawi, Imam Abd al-Hayy al-Laknawi, both have notable treatises on Hilal of Ramadan, on Ithbat al-Ahilla, and the issues regarding it. It's not something to look at necessarily. People jump into things like that. Like before you jump in the ocean, learn how to swim. Right? So and they get totally lost, right? So the solution to being lost in Nur al-Idah and the Maraqi is not to find the biggest ocean and drown there, right? Because if you drown in the pond, right? If you drown in the pool, what will happen to you in the ocean? So what do? First, learn how to swim, right? How do you swim? Just map it out. Once you mapped it out and figured out what the Maraqi says, then yes, then go. And you can see the nuances, right? So Ibn Abidin has a treatise on it. Um, but even before you go that, if you make dabt of this and look in the Hadiyah al-Ala'iyya, you'll see there's some of the details. There's some ikhtilaf on. I don't want to go into those here. Those are two of the most noteworthy treatises on the subject, right, of the classical ulama. Early in the 20th century, one of the great Hanafi fuqaha of the 20th century, Imam Muhammad Bakhit al-Muti'i, wrote a brilliant work, yet it is problematic for several reasons. It's called Irshadu Ahl al-Milla ila Ithbat al-Ahilla. And Imam Muhammad Bakhit al-Muti'i is a very impressive alim, someone as cautious as Imam al-Kawthari refers to him as Faqih al-Asr, the Faqih of the age, but he has certain idiosyncratic views. And we respect everybody, particularly we respect any human being, but particularly the Ahl al-Ilm. And of the Ahl al-Ilm, and the way of Ahl al-Sunnah is we respect even the a'lam of Ahl al-Bid'ah, right? And we take from them what is beneficial while being firm against what is not. The ulama respect and pray for the likes of Imam al-Zamakhshari and others who were Mu'tazila, but they had Al-Qadi Abdul Jabbar and others who did great khidmah despite their problems, but you don't read their books till you're ready to read their books, right? But the ulama do. And they know how to deal with it, right? I asked Sheikh Karayim Rajih because he was teaching. He'd been teaching the Kashaf of Imam al-Zamakhshari for years and years in the basement of Jami al-Mansur during the day. So some ulama would attend, some tulab al-ilm would attend, but also some grocery store owners and people from our neighborhood who liked Sheikh Karayim would also show up. And they'd close their store for a little while and come. Or some, they had someone else working with them. I just asked to say like I didn't used to attend that class, but I just showed up once or twice. But I asked him. I said, no. He says, will you explain it? He says the Ahl al-Ilm would understand that Tulab al-Ilm sought permission. And the rest, Wallah, ma bifhamu shay. So they don't understand anything anyways. So there's no worry. وبنشرح بيصدقوا كلامي and they believe what I have to tell them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect and preserve. But that's the balance of the ulama, right? Sheikh Muhammad Bakhit al-Muti'i has some rather idiosyncratic stances in that book. He has some very useful points about how rulings are established in the madhab, etc. But he has some views that are totally not acceptable, right? He has this thing that the real mutun in the madhab are not the mutun that the ulama say are the mutun, but rather the true mutun of the madhab are Mukhtasar al-Tahawi and Mukhtasar al-Karhi and so on. And that's a sort of view that there's other people who exhibit that, and that's unfortunate, but it's okay. That's your opinion, but there's لا يزال طائفة من أمتي ظاهرين على الحق. Right? We believe in this continuity. Then he has some point that there are the early mutun are noteworthy, and there's noteworthy works on them that they're worthy of consideration. That part we take. Beyond that, we don't accept that claim. Just be aware of that. I'm not suggesting you read. I'm actually discouraging that you read it right now. But when you come to it, just be aware that he said something different. Okay, big deal. But that doesn't mean لا ننتقص من قدره. Like I mean, Muhammad Bakhir al-Mutiah had great services to the deen, and he has some great works that are of benefit. Okay, then he says وهلال الأضحى في الحكم كالفطر فلا بد من نصاب الشهادة مع العلة والجمع العظيم مع الصحو في ظاهر الرواية. And the hilal of أضحى of عيد الأضحى, right? The hilal of هلال الأضحى أي هلال الشهر الذي فيه عيد الأضحى, which would be what month? Come on, guys. ذو الحجة, right? In ruling is like the hilal of fitr. فلا بد, so one requires the nisab of shahada if it's cloudy, and a large number if the sky is clear. This is ظاهر الرواية. And وهو الأصح لما يتعلق به من نفع العباد, because of what's related to affirming the months of the interests. نفع العباد أي مصالح العباد. Right? خلافا لما يروى عن الإمام أبي حنيفة أنه كهلال رمضان, as opposed to what's related from Abu Hanifa that the other months are like the hilal of Ramadan. وهي, and this narration is رواية النوادر. It's what's related in the nawadir, in secondary works. وصححها في التحفة, and it was chosen in the tuhfa, in tuhfat al-fuqaha. And that's why, despite it being a useful work, the mashayikh never paid much attention and generally did not encourage students to read tuhfat al-fuqaha at the beginning, because there are many things in it that are not zahir al-riwayah. But it's good for a talib later to create a framework. But one can easily, be all over the place due to works like that. والمذهب ظاهر الرواية. المذهب طبعا هنا. Right? And the madhab here is ظاهر الرواية, which is mentioned above. ويشترط في ثبوت بقية في الثبوت لبقية الأهلة إذا كان بالسماء علة شهادة رجلين عدلين أو شهادة حر وحرتين غير محدودين في القذف وإلا فجمع عظيم. And it's a condition for affirming the rest of the months. If the sky is cloudy, the witness of two upright men, or an upright man and two women, وحرتين, none of whom were punished due to false testimony. Otherwise, meaning if the sky is not cloudy, فجمع عظيم, a large group. Right? So this seems really, there's so many different cases, but you just put it all into one chart. It makes it very clear. A very useful tool for this, of course, is like just one of many is MindNode. Right? It's readily available. And just as a useful thing, if you install MindNode and you run it, there's a quick entry mode where you don't have to worry about any formatting. And that's very useful. Anyways, وإذا ثبت الهلال في بلدة ومطلع في بلدة ومطلع قطر لزم سائر الناس في ظاهر المذهب وعليه الفتوى وهو قول أكثر المشايخ. Right? If the hilal is established in one land or in one matla, right, and in one area with respect to the rising of the appearance of the moon, it is incumbent for all people in all lands. If they hear of it, they must fast that day. And that's ظاهر المذهب. That is the manifest transmission of the madhab, and that's the fatwa position, and is the position of most of the scholars. It's called اتحاد المطالع. العبرة باتحاد المطالع. That doesn't matter where it was seen, it is binding upon everyone who hears of it. This is what we would call global sighting. فيلزم قضاء يوم على أهل بلدة صاموا 29 يوما لعموم. Right? So if some people fasted 29 days, but they found out, because they started one day late, they would have to make up that day. Why? What's the reason behind this? Right? لعموم الخطاب في قوله تعالى صوموا لقوله عليه الصلاة والسلام صوموا لرؤيته. Fast, this is in the plural, for its seeing, for its being seen. So if it is seen, then fast. Right? صوموا لرؤيته, it's like saying, in ru'ya فصوموا. It's an if-then statement. Fast if it is seen. So you can arrange the logical component of it is if it is seen, then fast. It was seen, then the address is, then in the plural, all of you fast. So this is the majority position, right? Very strongly established in our method. وقيل يختلف ثبوته باختلاف المطالع. This is the local citing, that its establishment differs according to the different مطالع of the moon, right? واختاره صاحب التجريد. It was chosen by the author of التجريد. وغيره, and others. And some of the متأخرين chose it. Amongst them, it was argued by a Sayyid, right? And Tahtawi mentions that, right? كما إذا زالت الشمس عند قوم. Such, because if the sun set for some people, وغربت عند غيرهم, right? If it's set for others, فالظهر على الأولين. So the first people, its suns reach the zawal, they pray dhuhr. And لا المغرب, they don't have to pray maghrib. لعدم من انعقاد السبب في حقهم, because the cause is not realized with respect to them, right? But again here, when they detail the khilaf, you have to get a sense, different books, what is their method, right? Different books, what is their method? The asl here is what Imam Shurunbulali says in the matan is what he's going with, right? And he doesn't explicitly reject the second position that he mentions, right? Other texts differ. In the Hidayah, يعني الأصل هو ترجيح ما أخر دليله. In the Hidayah, for example, the asl is that the opinion whose evidence he mentions second is the one that he is going with. Right? So then he says, تنبيه ثبوت رمضان وشوال بالدعوة بنحو ثبوت رمضان وشوال بالدعوة بنحو وكالة معلقة فينكر المدعى عليه فيشهد الشهود بالرؤية فيقضى عليه ويثبت مجيء رمضان ضمنا لأن إثبات مجيء الشهر مجردا لا يدخل تحت الحكم وإن لزم الصوم بمجرد الإخبار ولا يشترط الإسلام في إخبار الجمع العظيم لأن التواتر لا يبالى فيه بكفر الناقلين فضلا عن فسقهم أو ضعفهم ذكره الكمال. Right? So in establishing Ramadan and Shawwal by a claim, right? Right? And there's khilaf about this, right? And you can see Imam Tahtawi saying this according to those who required the claim for establishing it, right, with the tafsil. Okay? Um, and what do you have? Binahwi? Can you read? بنحو وكالة به, right? Good. جزاكم الله خير. Yeah. There's something missing. So our copy has a phrase missing, right? And or so the establishing of Ramadan or Shawwal in a claim due to a wakala mu'allaqa bihi. Someone made an agency dependent on in dakhala Ramadan fa kada wa kada. Someone made an agency dependent on the beginning of Ramadan. Right? This is a very theoretical issue. If they go to court and say, well, I was an agent, I was allowed to buy this on his behalf because he said that if Ramadan enters, I can buy this for him. Right? So he makes the claim. Now look, Ramadan entered, so therefore, so he proves that Ramadan enters, not because Ramadan enters and he wants people to fast. He's just saying, look, I had the right to buy it on his behalf. So if it, إذا ثبت ضمنا, right? Does that establish the beginning of Ramadan? Right? So that's what he discussed there. You can read it. And in the large report, and this like tawatur. Tawatur is not min bab al-ikhbar. Right? That's why the muhaddithin discuss that is the mutawatir min mabahith ilm al-hadith. That's a theoretical discussion, right? But people abuse this, right? Because the mutawatir is a type of report, right? But it is, by definition, it is a report so mass transmitted, and with the conditions of tawatur, mass transmitted at every stage with a number so large, and what is being reported to is yastanid ila al-hiss. It goes back to something tangible. It does not go back to opinions or beliefs, right? It's mass transmit, something tangible, transmitted by such a large number, from such a large number that they could not conceivably collude on error. In tawatur, there's no consideration of Islam or of uprightness. So that's where, so muhaddithin said, what we do does not relate. So is mutawatir from ilm al-hadith? If you consider that's a type of transmission, is it from ilm al-hadith? Yes. But if you consider what is the duty of the muhaddithin, which is naqdur riwayah, which is to critique the report, in the sense that you look at the narration and its narrators and their uprightness, reliability. It's not from their science, but it is from their. So when they're denying it, the denial of the muhaddithin of tawatur, of the hadith al-mutawatir being of some of the muhaddithin, is laysa min ilm al-hadith. But it's not from ilm al-hadith that the ilm naqd al-hadith, that what tamyiz bayn al-akhbar. In that sense, they don't have anything to do with it. But it is a type of report. In that sense, of course, it's from ilm al-hadith. And then it's from ilm al-hadith also because it is the duty of the muhaddith and the usuli to consider, is this report mutawatir in the first place? If it's mutawatir, we don't have to then look at the narrators and so on, but looking, is it in fact mutawatir? That is from the duty of the muhaddithin. And that's why ilm al-hadith is very important, right? And there's all kinds of madness in our times going on with it. So we do have to all pay attention to ilm al-hadith, folks, as much as you guys are fiqh-oriented people. Right? Because if you're not careful, right, it can be a flop, fiqh-loving only people. Right? That's a flop, right? Like, because to understand fiqh well and to be able to convey fiqh well, you need these other senses. Ilm al-hadith is very, very important, right? ولا عبرة برؤية الهلال نهارا سواء كان قد رؤي قبل الزوال أو رؤي بعده وهو وهو الليلة المستقبلة. And there's no consideration for seeing the hilal during the day, whether it was seen before the zawal or was seen after the zawal, and it would count for the day after. لقوله صلى الله عليه وسلم صوموا لرؤيته, because the Prophet said fast for its seeing. فوجب سبق الرؤية على الصوم. So it's required that the ru'ya, the seeing, precede the fast, and the fast begins at Fajr time. والفطر والمفهوم المتبادر منه الرؤيا عند عشية كل شهر. And what's understood from the narration to anybody who hears it is seeing it on the eve, on the night before each month. عند الصحابة والتابعين ومن بعدهم. And this is what's understood by the Sahaba and Tabi'in, those after, في المختار, according to the chosen opinion من المذهب, in our madhab. And in our copy it says وبعده هو الليلة المستقبلة, or it should be لليلة المستقبلة. What do you have? لليلة? That's probably the more correct opinion, the more correct text. لليلة, right? It should not هو الليلة المستقبلة. Anyone have any of the other copies?
I have لليلة المستقبل.
Yeah, that's correct. Sorry. تعبان. Okay, so that's where we reach for today. And then we'll continue from what invalidates the fast and what doesn't invalidate the fast, right? And what requires kafara, right? And that's a very straightforward chapter. But let's diagram this chapter, please, because it's just, the issue of ru'yatul hilal, because it can seem cloudy. And in understanding of many people, there's illa regarding it. So let's diagram it. Like you can use one of the mind mapping tools, whatever. However you guys want to do it. وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين. Any questions here?
I have a question. I have to pre-answer those. Should I ask another time?
Just ask, and then we'll close for today.
Okay. My understanding was that sighting the moon is a shart, and why wouldn't it make more sense to calculate when seeing if seeing the moon is a shart, because we took earlier العبرة في الشروط حصولها لا تحصيل.
No, because there's تنصيص. رؤيا, right? Allah. فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصم, right? Right? And what is shahada? It's a ru'ya alanan. It's clearly seeing, right? Right? Sumu li ru'yatihi. And ru'ya in the Arabic language, right? Ru'ya, the literal meaning is not left, right? That's what, and that's why it's not just our madhab. All four madhabs, right? The mu'tamad, there's only minority opinions are to the opposite of this, right? So it's not condemnable. It is there. Like, what can we do about it? It's there. Someone asked, what is the correct opinion? Say this, but we just stop at that. If other people take another opinion, لست عليهم, the Prophet ﷺ told, لست عليهم بمسيطر. You're not there to control people. What do we do? But what is, and that's, what can we do? And there is leeway for global sighting. There's leeway for local sighting, right? The details of how it is enacted. One of the reasons many ulama go with local sighting is that there has to be proper procedure for verifying the global sighting, right? And there's all kinds of, and many things just take time to resolve. Simple as that. Like certain things take time to resolve, and inshallah if what is the long-term expectation is, if procedures can be sorted out, then the what will unite the ummah is global sighting, and to use properly with standardized implementation, and to use calculations to negate unverifiable sightings, right? That then, I mean, the whole world doesn't typically get cloudy. So typically you would need a large number of people, right? And if it's small numbers of people, then you would need it to be mufassar, and you define the procedures for that. The ummah agree on that, and that's how it can be solved. But getting there is not so easy. Okay? Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam, walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.